Today's topic is nonfiction writing. And if you have 5 minutes, I have 5 more tips to help your nonfiction writing. Well, you probably already know, if you've been listening to me for a while, that I started my writing career almost 40 years ago as a nonfiction health and medical writer. And I learned a lot in nonfiction and writing nonfiction for many years, and many of those things that I learned I actually was able to translate into fiction. But every once in a while I like to return to this topic. I have given tips before, and here's some more tips that I think are important in nonfiction writing. Obviously, if I'm going to do 5 tips at a time, sometimes there are more things that we need to say about a particular topic, and nonfiction writing is one of those topics. So I have 5 more tips for you today. Tip number 1, know your audience. I cannot say this often enough. When it comes to nonfiction writing, one of the primary characteristics that make nonfiction writing really good is to know your audience. If you were to say, my book is for everyone, you would be wrong. Unless you're Prince Harry and you think everyone in the world is going to be interested in your book, which they're not, you're probably going to have to be very careful about trying to articulate who you're writing this particular piece of nonfiction for. Could it be a large audience? Yes, it could be very large, but it also needs to be clear that you're not writing it for everyone, because it actually helps your writing. It helps you be able to write in a particular way for a particular audience when you're doing nonfiction. So how do you get to know who your audience is? Well, you have to do some research. And if you are a subject expert in a particular area, then you probably are connected to people in online and in real life. Those are the kinds of people that you need to look to see who would be your audience. Who's also doing research on these topics? Who wants to know about the topic area? And you have to look at that audience very carefully to be able to determine how you're going to be able to craft the writing to make sure that they understand and get the message. Tip number 2, organize your material meticulously. I've talked before about outlining, and that's one of the ways that you can organize your material, but it's not the only way. Organizing your material has a number of benefits for you. Having that organizational structure propels your writing forward. It allows you to see where you're going next. It means that if you're writing a nonfiction book proposal, for example, where you're going to have to create a very detailed outline, that you know where you're going and that your book is practically half written by the time you actually write that first sentence. The second thing is, if you organize all your material up front, you will know when you have enough material, when you have done enough background research. Sometimes writers will ask the question, how will I know when I have enough stuff to put in a book? Well, if you organize your material, it's going to be much easier to get to the point where you say, yes, I have enough, I need to start writing. Tip number 3, maintain a consistent tone and voice. Keep your target audience in mind as you begin writing, and keep that tone consistent so that they can relate to it and they understand it, and it makes it easier for them to read from the beginning to the end of your book. Tip number 4, show, don't tell, as often as you can. Now, you probably think that this is a rule for fiction writers. It's not actually a rule at all. There are no rules, but it is a guideline to help people improve their writing, that you don't continually just give information, but you tell a story that draws readers in and that creates in their mind a picture of what you're trying to say. And that's what we mean by show, don't tell. Sometimes in nonfiction writing, there can be so much exposition, so much telling of information that the reader's eyes start to glaze over. If you want to maintain their interest, try showing them something, giving them an anecdote, giving them a story that will actually illustrate in their minds and they can see it. Tip number 5, capture your reader with the first sentence. This is not just something for fiction writers. This is extremely important for nonfiction writing, whether it's long form, writing a book, a memoir, an autobiography, whether you're writing a blog post or whether you're writing a magazine article, a newspaper piece, feature writing article, doesn't matter what it is. You need to hook the reader with that very first sentence. I did do a video some time ago about writing first sentences, which might be helpful for you. It was focused largely on fiction, but you can use the same kinds of things. So how do you hook a reader? Well, you might try starting with a thought-provoking question, a startling fact, a quote from a very important, relevant source that's related to the material. You could start with an anecdote. Those are all ways to grab readers and draw them into your book and let them see that what you are writing is something that they want to continue reading. Writing nonfiction is an art, just like writing fiction is. And just because you're a nonfiction writer or you're writing nonfiction doesn't mean that you don't need to practice your writing. Writing practice is just as important for nonfiction writing as it is for fiction writing. So pull out that journal or that notebook, get yourself a nice pen, and sit down and start writing. Freehand writing, free thought writing, just write and practice your nonfiction writing. Happy writing. Subscribe to Write, Fix, Repeat. And maybe I can help you improve your writing knowledge and skills. 5 tips at a time.